She woke up naked in a stranger's bed, and the man beside her was already gone. Not even a goodbye, not a name, just the scent of expensive cologne and the memory of tattooed hands that had memorized her body the night before. She told herself it was a mistake, a one-night lapse she would bury forever. 3 hours later, she walked into her new job in Seoul, her first day, her last chance, her fresh start away from Los Angeles, and the ex she was running from. The conference room doors opened, and the man at the head of the table slowly lifted his eyes. The tattoos, the cold stare, the same mouth that had whispered her name in the dark. In that moment, she realized two terrifying truths. She had slept with her new boss, and the Korean CEO had one rule. He never mixed business with pleasure. Hey, family! Before the story begins, I want you to do something real quick. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Your comments fuel these stories. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because what happens next will leave you speechless. She woke up naked in a stranger's bed. Cold morning light spilled across her skin, sharp enough to make her flinch as awareness crashed into her all at once. Silk sheets, a foreign ceiling, the lingering ache between her thighs that made her suck in a breath. He was gone. The space beside her was empty, still warm. The faint imprint of a body pressed into the mattress like a ghost that refused to leave. The smell hit her next. Expensive cologne mixed with something darker, masculine, almost sinful. Her pulse stuttered as memories rushed back without mercy. The bar, the music, the way his eyes had pinned her before he ever touched her. She squeezed her eyes shut, but it didn't help. She could still feel him. Tattooed hands gripping her hips. A deep voice in her ear, calm and dangerous, telling her to look at him while he moved inside her. She swallowed hard, heat curling low in her stomach despite the panic clawing up her throat. God. She pushed herself up, clutching the sheet to her chest, scanning the room. His apartment was too clean, too minimal. All glass, steel, and muted colors. No photos, no warmth, no trace of a man who stayed attached to anything. Or anyone. Her clothes were folded neatly on a chair. That alone sent a shiver through her. She slid out of bed, legs shaky, and dressed quickly. Her phone lay on the nightstand. No missed calls, no messages, not even a note, not a name. Stupid, she whispered to herself, dragging a hand down her face. A one-night stand. That was all it was supposed to be. A reckless decision fueled by jet lag, loneliness, and the need to forget. She hadn't even planned to go to that bar. She just needed noise, a distraction. Something loud enough to drown out the image of her ex's face back in Los Angeles, and the suffocating feeling that her life had been closing in on her. She hadn't planned to meet him. But when he looked at her from across the bar, something in his gaze had stripped her bare before he ever touched her. No smile, no flirtation, just intent, as if he'd already decided how the night would end. And she had gone willingly. She grabbed her bag and left without looking back. 3 hours later, she stood in the bathroom of a sleek corporate building in Seoul, gripping the edge of the sink like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Get it together. This was her fresh start. New country, new job, no distractions, no mistakes. She smoothed her skirt, adjusted her blouse, and stared at her reflection. Her eyes looked too bright. Her lips were still swollen, betraying her. First day. First impression. She exhaled slowly and walked toward the conference room. The doors were already open. Executives sat around a long glass table, murmuring quietly. She slipped into a seat near the back, heart pounding, and lowered her gaze to the documents in front of her. Then the room went silent. Not gradually, not politely, abruptly. A presence filled the space, heavy enough to press against her spine. She looked up without meaning to. And the world tilted. He stood at the head of the table, immaculate in a tailored black suit that hugged broad shoulders she recognized far too intimately. His hair was perfectly styled, his expression unreadable. His posture relaxed in a way that radiated control. Her breath caught painfully in her throat. No. Her mind refused it even as her body reacted. The sharp line of his jaw, the cold intensity of his eyes, the faint scar near his brow she'd traced with her fingers hours ago, the tattoos hidden beneath crisp white cuffs, the stranger, her one-night stand. Her stomach dropped as his gaze swept the room, and then stopped. For a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face. Recognition. The air thickened. Her pulse roared in her ears. She waited for him to react, to look away, to do something. He didn't. His eyes lingered on her just long enough to acknowledge the impossible. Then his face hardened into something smooth and impassive. Professional. Untouchable. "Good morning," he said, voice calm, controlled, devastatingly familiar. Her fingers curled into the fabric of her skirt to stop them from shaking. "I am Kang Min-jae," he continued, taking his seat without breaking eye contact. "CEO of KJ Group." The words slammed into her chest. CEO. Boss. Her vision blurred at the edges as the reality crushed down on her all at once. She had slept with him, given herself to him, let him see her vulnerable, desperate, undone. And now, he controlled her career. The meeting began, but she heard nothing. Her thoughts spiraled, fear threading through the heat that still coiled inside her whenever she remembered his mouth on her skin. This couldn't be happening. The meeting ended too quickly. "Miss Carter," he said coolly as people stood and gathered their things. "Stay behind!" Her heart nearly stopped. She watched everyone else file out, her legs threatening to give way with every step until they were alone. The door clicked shut behind the last executive. Silence. He stood, unbuttoning his suit jacket with deliberate slowness. The sound was loud in the empty room. She swallowed. "Sir, do not," he interrupted, his voice sharp now, low and dangerous. "Call me anything you called me last night." Heat flooded her cheeks. Shame and desire twisted together painfully. "I didn't know," she blurted out. "If I had known who you were, I would never—" "I know," he said, cutting her off again. He moved closer, each step measured, controlled. Predatory. "Which is why you're still standing here." Her breath came shallow. "Am I fired?" He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell him again. That same cologne, that same darkness. "I have one rule," he said quietly. "I do not mix business with pleasure." Her chest tightened. "I need this job," she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I'll forget last night ever happened. I swear. I can't lose this. I have nowhere else to go." His eyes searched her face, something unreadable burning behind them. "If you can remain professional," he said slowly, "you will keep your position." Relief crashed through her so hard her knees nearly buckled. "But understand this," he continued, voice dropping, gaze darkening. "What happened last night will never happen again." She nodded quickly. "Yes, of course." He held her gaze for a long moment, jaw tightening as if restraining something far more dangerous than anger. The problem wasn't whether she could stay professional. It was whether he could. And as his eyes slid down her body, slow, heated, possessive, she knew this was only the beginning. She avoided him for the rest of the day. Not deliberately at first. It was instinct, survival. She kept her head down, focused on her screen, answering emails, reviewing reports, doing everything in her power to remind herself why she was here. This job was her lifeline, her anchor, the one thing she could not afford to lose. But avoidance was impossible. His presence filled the entire floor without him saying a word. Every time his office door opened, her spine stiffened. Every time his voice carried down the corridor, calm and authoritative, heat pooled low in her stomach against her will. It infuriated her. She hated how her body remembered him so vividly, hated how one look from him could unravel hours of self-control. She told herself he was just her boss, nothing more. By late afternoon, she had almost convinced herself she was managing. Then her phone vibrated. "CEO requests your presence! Now!" Her heart slammed hard against her ribs. She stared at the screen, fingers hovering. This wasn't a meeting request. This wasn't formal. It was direct, personal. Her legs felt heavy as she stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. She took a breath before walking down the corridor, each step echoing louder than the last. When she reached his office door, she hesitated for half a second, then knocked. "Come in." His voice still did that thing to her. She entered, closing the door behind her with deliberate care. His office was as immaculate as the apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Dark wood, clean lines, control etched into every surface. He stood near the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, exposing a glimpse of tattooed skin at his forearm. Her gaze dropped before she could stop herself. His eyes followed the movement. A charged silence settled between them. "You wanted to see me, sir?" she asked, forcing professionalism into her tone. "Yes." He turned slowly, his gaze unreadable. "Sit." She obeyed, perching on the edge of the chair opposite his desk, hands folded tightly in her lap. "You handled yourself well in the meeting," he said, his voice neutral. "Your analysis was precise." Relief flickered through her. "Thank you." "I expect consistency." "She'll get it," she replied quickly. "I mean, yes, of course." A corner of his mouth twitched, not a smile, something darker. "Good," he said. Then after a pause, "Because there will be no special treatment." Her chest tightened. "I don't want any." "See that you don't," he replied coolly. She nodded, rising to leave when his voice stopped her. "And Miss Carter." She turned. His gaze locked onto hers, heavy and intent. "What happened last night will remain where it belongs." "In the past," she said quickly. His eyes flickered, dropping briefly to her lips before lifting again. "Exactly." She left before the silence crushed her. The next few days were torture disguised as routine. Meetings, briefings, late evenings, shared elevators. Every interaction was restrained, professional, and impossibly tense. He never touched her, never crossed a visible line. But his eyes followed her relentlessly, watched her when she spoke, when she walked, when she laughed softly with coworkers. And she felt it. Every time. The elevator became her worst enemy. The first time it happened, she stepped inside just as the doors were closing. He was already there. The doors slid shut with a soft chime, sealing them inside a small, quiet space. Her breath hitched before she could stop it. She stared straight ahead, pulse racing. Neither of them spoke. The hum of the elevator filled the silence as it began its descent. She could feel him beside her, feel the heat of his body, the tension rolling off him in waves. Her arm brushed his sleeve accidentally. She sucked in a breath. "Careful," he murmured. The word wasn't a warning, it was a plea. She glanced up, and for a split second the mask slipped. His jaw was tight, eyes dark, restraint etched into every line of his face. It hit her then, hard and undeniable. This wasn't one-sided. He was struggling. The doors opened and she stepped out quickly, heart pounding, leaving him behind. She should have felt relief. Instead, her body ached with something dangerously close to longing. By the end of the week, rumors began to circulate. Nothing obvious, just whispers, curious glances, lingering looks. She noticed how his assistant watched her too closely, how a senior manager's smile felt forced whenever she spoke. And then she met her. The woman was stunning in an effortless, polished way, tall, elegant, perfectly composed. She walked into the office like she belonged there, heels clicking softly against marble floors. "Who's that?" Someone whispered nearby. She didn't need to ask. The answer was written in the way his entire demeanor shifted when he saw her. His posture straightened. His expression cooled. He greeted her with measured politeness, nothing more. But it was enough. That night, she sat alone in her apartment, staring at her phone. Los Angeles felt farther away than ever. She hadn't heard from her ex in weeks. She didn't want to. But the loneliness crept in anyway, heavy and unwelcome. Her phone buzzed suddenly. An unknown number. "Are you safe?" Her breath caught. She stared at the message, heart racing. "Who is this?" she typed back. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Kang Min-jae. Her fingers trembled. "Yes," she replied after a moment. "I'm fine." Several seconds passed. Good. That was all. She set the phone down, chest tight, knowing one terrifying truth. The distance between them was shrinking, and the rules were starting to crack. She told herself the message meant nothing. But as she lay awake, replaying his voice in her mind, she knew the danger wasn't what he had already done. It was what he was holding back. The first time he said her name, it wasn't in public. It was late. The office floor was nearly empty. Lights dimmed to a muted glow that softened the sharp edges of glass and steel. She had stayed behind to finish a report, fingers aching, mind foggy from exhaustion and restraint. She didn't hear him approach. "You're still here." Her shoulders tensed at the sound of his voice behind her. She turned slowly, heart skipping, when she found him standing just a few feet away, jacket back on, expression unreadable. "Yes, sir," she said automatically. "I wanted to finish the projections for tomorrow." His gaze flicked to her screen, then back to her face. "You're thorough." "Someone has to be," she replied, attempting a light tone that didn't quite land. Silence stretched. He moved closer, not enough to touch, but enough that she felt the shift in the air. Her breath shortened without permission. She hated how aware she was of him, how every inch of space between them felt charged. "Miss Carter," he said, then stopped. Her pulse jumped. He exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing as if making a decision he didn't want to make. "Maya." The sound of her name in his voice sent a shock through her body, sharp and intimate. She stiffened, fingers curling around the edge of the desk. "Yes?" she whispered before she could stop herself. His gaze locked onto hers, dark and searching. Saying her name had changed something. She could feel it. The distance he'd been clinging to thinned dangerously. "You should go home," he said quietly. She nodded, grabbing her bag too quickly. "Good night, sir." She brushed past him, heart pounding, and didn't stop walking until she reached the elevator. Inside, alone, she pressed a hand to her chest. Maya. He knew her now. The next morning, the fiancé arrived. Her name was Seo Yuna, and she belonged everywhere she stood. Maya noticed her immediately, not because she was announced, but because the energy in the office shifted the moment she stepped inside. Conversations softened, heads turned. Respect followed her like a shadow. Yuna was elegant in a way that felt effortless. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her dress understated but expensive, her expression calm and observant. She smiled easily, but her eyes missed nothing. Maya watched from her desk as Kang Min-jae greeted her. His demeanor changed subtly. Straighter posture, polite distance. The cold authority he wore like armor settled back into place. "This is Seo Yuna," someone whispered nearby. "His fiancée." The word landed heavily in Maya's chest. Fiancé. She told herself she didn't care. She had no right to. Whatever had happened between her and him was a mistake, one she had already agreed to bury. Still, her throat tightened as she watched Yuna lean in slightly, her hand resting lightly on his arm as she spoke. He didn't pull away. The meeting that followed was unbearable. Yuna sat beside him at the head of the table, composed and confident. Maya kept her gaze on her notes, forcing her attention to stay professional. Every time she spoke, she felt his eyes on her, measuring, watching. When the meeting ended, Yuna's gaze flicked toward her, sharp and assessing. "You must be Maya," she said pleasantly, approaching her desk. Maya looked up, startled. "Yes," Yuna smiled. "I've heard good things. Minjae values competence." The use of his name made Maya's stomach twist. "Thank you," she replied carefully. Yuna tilted her head, studying her for a brief moment too long. "You're new to Korea, aren't you?" "Yes." "That must be difficult," Yuna said softly, "being so far from home." Maya forced a smile. "I'm adjusting." Yuna nodded, satisfied, and turned away. The encounter left Maya shaken. That evening, her phone buzzed as she left the building. A familiar number. "Did she speak to you?" "Her?" Breath caught. "Who?" she typed back, though she already knew. "Yuna." She hesitated, then replied, briefly. Several seconds passed. "And?" The question was too loaded, too personal. Her fingers hovered over the screen. "It was fine," she sent finally. The response came almost immediately. "Good." She stopped walking, heart racing. The possessiveness threaded through that single word sent a shiver down her spine. She wasn't imagining this. The following days only confirmed it. His restraint frayed in small, telling ways. Meetings ran longer. His tone sharpened when other men spoke to her. Once, when a colleague laughed too easily at something she said, Kang Min-jae cut the discussion short with a look that silenced the room. Yuna noticed, Maya noticed, and then her past caught up with her. The message came late at night, the name lighting up her screen like a ghost she couldn't escape. "I'm in Seoul." Her chest tightened painfully. "We need to talk." Her ex, the reason she'd run. She stared at the message, dread pooling in her stomach. She hadn't told anyone about him, not even Kang Min-jae, especially not him. The next morning, she arrived at work tense and distracted. She didn't notice Kang Min-jae watching her until she felt his presence beside her desk. "Walk with me," he said quietly. It wasn't a request. They moved toward his office, the door closing behind them with a soft click that echoed louder than it should have. "You're distracted," he said, turning to face her. "Why?" Her pulse raced. "It's nothing." He stepped closer, his control visibly strained. "You're lying." The accusation wasn't harsh. It was intimate, dangerous. She swallowed. "Someone from my past reached out." His jaw tightened. "A man," he said. She froze. The silence stretched, thick and volatile. "Does he matter?" Kang Min-jae asked, his voice low. She hesitated, and in that hesitation she felt the shift. The moment his restraint began to crack. He had rules. He had a fiancé. But as jealousy flickered in his eyes for the first time, Maya realized one terrifying truth. Someone was about to get hurt. The silence in his office pressed down on her like a weight. He didn't move at first. Neither did she. The city lights outside the window blinked steadily, indifferent to the storm gathering between them. "Does he matter?" Kang Min-jae repeated, his voice lower now, tighter. Maya's fingers curled against the strap of her bag. "He's my past," she said carefully. "I didn't come to Korea to bring old mistakes with me." His gaze dropped to her mouth, lingered there a fraction of a second too long, then lifted again. "And yet, he followed you?" "I didn't invite him," she replied. "I didn't even know he was coming." Something dark flashed through Min-jae's eyes. "Did you respond?" "Yes," she admitted, "only to tell him not to contact me." Again. A muscle in his jaw flexed. He turned away abruptly, walking toward the window as if putting distance between them was the only thing keeping him in control. "You should be careful," he said after a moment. Men who chase women across continents rarely do so with good intentions. Her chest tightened. "I can handle him." He laughed quietly. The sound held no humor. "You think this is about him?" She frowned. "Then what is it about?" He turned back to her, eyes burning now, restraint visibly fraying. You standing in front of me, pretending you don't understand why this bothers me. Her breath caught painfully. Sir, don't, he said sharply. Not now. The word cut through the air like a blade. She should have stepped back, should have created space. Instead, she stood frozen, heart pounding, aware of him in a way that made her skin hum. This ends, he said, whatever tension you think exists. I'm not imagining it, she interrupted softly. The words slipped out before fear could stop them. His eyes locked onto hers. The room felt suddenly smaller. You're not, he admitted, voice dangerously quiet. Her pulse roared in her ears. Then why are we pretending? He took one step toward her, then another. She backed up instinctively until the edge of his desk pressed into her thighs. Her breath came shallow now, her body betraying her resolve. Because pretending is the only thing keeping you safe, he said. From what? She whispered. From me. The honesty in his voice sent a shiver through her. He stopped inches away, close enough that she could feel his heat, his control stretched thin like a wire ready to snap. His hand came up, hovering near her waist, not touching. Leave, he said hoarsely. She should have listened. Instead, she lifted her gaze to his. If you want me gone, stop looking at me like that. Something broke. His hand closed around her wrist, firm but not rough, pinning it lightly against the desk. Her breath hitched sharply. Do you have any idea what restraint costs? He murmured. Every day you walk into this building, you test it. Her voice trembled. Then let me transfer, No, he snapped, immediately regretting it. His grip loosened, but he didn't let go. I don't want you gone. The admission hung between them, heavy and undeniable. They stared at each other, breaths mingling, the line between right and wrong dissolving with every second that passed. A knock on the door shattered the moment. Min-jae released her instantly, stepping back as if burned. His face closed off, control snapping back into place with brutal efficiency. Come in, he said coldly. Yuna entered, her gaze flicking between them with sharp precision. She smiled politely, but something in her eyes narrowed. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said. No, Min-jae replied smoothly. We were finished. Maya grabbed her bag, heart pounding. I'll excuse myself. As she slipped past Yuna, she felt the woman's gaze follow her, calculating and cool. That night, Maya didn't sleep. Her phone buzzed repeatedly on her bedside table, ignored messages lighting up the screen. Her ex again. I saw you today. Her breath caught. You look good. The next message read, better than you did in LA. Her hands shook as she typed. Stop contacting me. Why? He replied. Because of your boss? Fear crawled up her spine. At work the next day, the tension was unbearable. Min-jae avoided her entirely, his cold professionalism back in full force. Yuna stayed close to him, her presence a constant reminder of what Maya was not. Then during lunch, everything exploded. Her ex appeared in the lobby. She spotted him instantly, tall, familiar, smiling like he still had a right to. Her stomach dropped. Before she could turn away, he saw her. Maya, he called, striding toward her. There you are. Her coworkers slowed, curious glances turning into open stares. I asked you not to come here, she said tightly. He chuckled. Relax, I just wanted to talk. A shadow fell over them. Min-jae stood behind her, his presence unmistakable. Is there a problem? He asked calmly. Her ex looked him over, unimpressed. You must be the boss. Min-jae's gaze hardened. You're causing a scene. The man smirked. She always did attract powerful men. That was a mistake. Min-jae stepped forward, placing himself fully between them. His voice dropped, lethal in its calm. You will leave. The smile slid from the man's face. Maya's heart raced. Min-jae. Now, he repeated. Security appeared moments later, escorting her ex out amid murmurs and stares. The damage was done. Later, alone in the empty corridor, Min-jae turned to her, eyes blazing. "Why didn't you tell me he was here?" he demanded. "Because this isn't your responsibility," she shot back, fear giving way to anger. "You don't own me." Silence crashed between them. His expression darkened. "No," he said slowly, "but I want to." The admission stole the air from her lungs. He had crossed a line he could never uncross. And as Maya stood there, torn between fear and desire, she realized the war between duty and obsession had officially begun. After that day, nothing felt the same. The office buzzed with rumors that moved faster than logic. Whispers curled through hallways. Curious glances followed Maya wherever she went. No one said anything directly, but she felt it. The shift in how people looked at her, the questions they were too careful to ask. And Kang Min-jae? He became untouchable. He didn't avoid her anymore. He managed her. Every interaction was precise, formal, stripped of warmth. Emails instead of conversations, meetings instead of glances, orders delivered, without emotion. If she hadn't known better, she would have thought she'd imagined everything. But she hadn't. Because every time she spoke in a meeting, his attention locked onto her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Every time another man addressed her directly, Min-jae's jaw tightened, his patience thinning by degrees only she seemed to notice. Restraint, stretched thin, was still restraint. Until Yuna confronted her. It happened in the women's lounge late one afternoon. Maya was washing her hands when Yuna appeared beside her in the mirror, expression calm, eyes sharp. "You handled that situation in the lobby well," Yuna said casually. Maya stiffened. "I didn't create it." "No," Yuna agreed. "But you were at the center of it." Maya turned to face her. "Is there something you want to say to me?" Yuna smiled faintly. "I like clarity, don't you?" "Yes." "My relationship with Min-jae is complicated," Yuna continued smoothly. "But it is understood. By our families, by the company, by him." Maya's throat tightened. "I respect that." "I hope so," Yuna replied, "because misunderstandings have consequences." The warning was clear. That night, Maya received an email from Human Resources. Meeting scheduled. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Her stomach dropped. She barely slept, anxiety gnawing at her chest. By morning, her nerves were shot. She walked into the HR office to find Min-jae already there. Her heart stuttered. The meeting was brief, polite, clinical. Concerns had been raised, boundaries questioned, appearances scrutinized. Min-jae handled it all with cold efficiency, taking responsibility without revealing anything. His authority shut the conversation down before it could turn ugly. Afterward, he dismissed HR and turned to her. "You should have told me," he said quietly. "I didn't want to make it worse," she replied. "You don't get to decide that alone," he snapped, frustration bleeding through his control. She crossed her arms. "I didn't ask you to protect me." His gaze burned. "And yet I did." The air between them crackled. "This is exactly why nothing can happen between us," she said, voice shaking despite her resolve. "Look at the damage already." He laughed bitterly. "Damage happens when people lie, when they pretend." "And what are we doing right now?" she asked. He stared at her for a long moment, conflict etched into his face. "Surviving," he said finally. Days later, the company hosted a formal dinner. Attendance was mandatory. Maya wore a simple black dress, elegant but understated. She didn't want attention. She got it anyway. Min-jae arrived with Yuna on his arm. The sight hit her harder than she expected. Yuna was flawless, confident, completely at ease beside him. They looked like a future already written. Maya focused on conversation, on smiling, on pretending she wasn't unraveling from the inside out. Then, her ex appeared. Again. This time he stayed back, watching her from across the room, eyes calculating. Min-jae noticed instantly. His grip tightened on his glass, his gaze darkened. Maya felt it before she saw him. Min-jae moving toward her, his presence cutting through the noise. "Why is he here?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," she replied. "I didn't invite him." Her ex approached, grin smug. "Small world." Min-jae stepped in front of her without hesitation. "You were told to stay away," the man scoffed. "Or what? You'll fire her?" Maya bristled. "Stop." Min-jae ignored her. "Leave." Yuna appeared beside them, eyes sharp. "What's going on?" The tension snapped. Maya turned to Min-jae. "Please, not here." Something in her voice broke through his fury. He exhaled sharply, stepping back. Security was called. The man was escorted out. But the damage lingered. Later, alone on the balcony overlooking the city, Maya found Min-jae gripping the railing, knuckles white. "I can't keep doing this," she said softly. He didn't turn. "Neither can I." "I'll resign," she said. "That's the cleanest solution." He spun around. "No, it's the only way," she insisted. "You have a fiancé, a company, a reputation. I won't be the reason you lose control." His laugh was hollow. "You already are." The admission silenced her. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If you walk away, I lose you. If you stay, I lose everything else." Her chest ached. "Then choose." His gaze searched her face, raw and unguarded now. "I don't know how," he admitted. For the first time, she saw fear in his eyes. He had reached the edge of control. And as Maya stood there, offering him a choice he wasn't ready to make, she realized one truth with chilling clarity. Walking away might hurt, but staying could destroy them both. Maya didn't resign the next morning. She told herself it was because she needed time. 1 day, maybe 2. Just enough to think clearly. But deep down, she knew the truth. Walking away felt like cutting off a limb she'd only just realized she needed. The office felt different now. Too quiet, too watchful. Min-jae avoided her again, but this time the distance felt fragile, forced. When their eyes met across a room, something raw passed between them. Unspoken, dangerous. By midweek, Yuna requested a private lunch. Maya almost declined. Almost. They met at a quiet restaurant near the office. Yuna arrived perfectly composed, ordering tea before Maya even sat down. "You're important to him," Yuna said without preamble. Maya stiffened. "I'm his employee." Yuna smiled faintly. "You're more than that, and you know it." Maya exhaled slowly. "Nothing has happened." "Not physically," Yuna agreed. "But emotionally, he's already gone." The words landed hard. "I didn't plan this," Maya said quietly. "I never wanted to hurt anyone." Yuna studied her for a long moment. "Neither did I. But love isn't polite, and Min-jae has never belonged to just himself." The warning was subtle, final. That night, Maya packed a suitcase. She stared at it for a long time before closing the zipper. She left a resignation letter on her desk, brief and professional. No explanations, no apologies. Then she went to his office. The lights were off. He wasn't there. Her heart sank. She stepped back into the corridor just as the elevator doors opened. Min-jae emerged, jacket slung over his arm, expression unreadable. "Maya," he said, stopping short when he saw her bag. Her throat tightened. "I'm leaving." He stared at the suitcase, then at her. "When?" "Tonight." Silence crashed between them. "You can't," he said. "I can," she replied. "And I should have sooner." His voice dropped. "This is because of her." "This is because of us," she corrected. "We're a mistake that keeps bleeding into everything else." His jaw clenched. "Say that again." She met his gaze, steady despite the ache in her chest. We were a mistake. Something in him snapped. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, stopping just short of touching her. Do you know how many nights I've spent not touching you? He said quietly. How many times I've chosen restraint over honesty? Her breath shook. Then let me go. I can't. The confession shattered the last of her resolve. Min-jae. He reached out, fingers brushing her wrist, tentative for the first time. Stay. Just tonight. The vulnerability in his voice undid her. She nodded. They ended up in his apartment again. The same glass walls, the same city lights. But everything felt different now. Charged, fragile. He poured her a drink. She didn't touch it. You should leave, he said, voice hoarse. You said stay. I'm trying to protect you, he replied. From what? She asked softly. From myself. She stepped closer. You don't scare me. His laugh was breathless. You should be terrified. When he finally kissed her, it wasn't rushed. It was controlled, desperate, a collision of restraint and surrender. His hands trembled slightly as they framed her face, thumbs brushing her cheeks like he needed to anchor himself. The kiss deepened, heat spiraling dangerously. He pulled away abruptly, forehead resting against hers. If we do this, there's no undoing it. I know, she whispered. He searched her face, then nodded once. They crossed the line together. Later, wrapped in silence and city lights, reality crept back in. He lay beside her, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow changes everything. She turned to him. I don't regret this. Neither do I, he said. But regret doesn't protect us. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message. From Yuna. We need to talk. Min-jae saw the screen light up. The moment shattered. They had finally given in to the truth. But as consequences loomed closer than ever, Maya realized love wasn't the danger anymore. Exposure was. Morning arrived without mercy. Sunlight spilled across the apartment. Too bright, too revealing. Maya lay still for a moment, listening to Min-jae's breathing beside her. Steady but tense, as if even in sleep he was bracing for impact. Reality settled heavily in her chest. They had crossed the line. She sat up slowly, pulling the sheet around herself. The city outside looked unchanged, indifferent to the shift that had occurred inside these walls. Last night felt both inevitable and dangerous in hindsight. Min-jae stirred, then opened his eyes. For a second, he looked at her without armor. Just a man who had made a choice. Then, the weight of everything returned to his gaze. You should go, he said quietly. She nodded. There was no argument left in her. They dressed in silence. When she reached the door, her hand paused on the handle. I meant what I said, she told him. I don't regret us. His jaw tightened. That makes this harder. She left before either of them could say more. The office was chaos by noon. Yuna had arrived early, her presence sharp and deliberate. She went straight into Min-jae's office and closed the door. It stayed closed for nearly an hour. Maya sat at her desk, heart pounding, every minute stretching unbearably long. When the door finally opened, Yuna emerged composed, but her eyes were cold. Maya, she said, her voice carrying just enough to turn heads. May I speak with you? They stepped into an empty conference room. I gave him a choice, Yuna said calmly. Honor his obligations, or pursue something reckless and temporary. Maya swallowed. And? He chose you, Yuna said. The words hit like a blow. But understand this, Yuna continued, her tone hardening. He didn't just choose love, he chose consequences. The fallout was swift. Board members demanded explanations. Rumors reached shareholders. Questions surfaced about favoritism and judgment. Min-jae faced them all head-on, refusing to hide or deflect. Maya was called into HR again, this time with legal present. She expected termination. Instead, she received an offer, a transfer, overseas, a clean break. She walked into Min Jae's office afterward, letter in hand. "They want to move me," she said quietly. His face darkened. "Do you want to go?" "It's safer," she replied. "For both of us." He studied her for a long moment. "And if I ask you to stay?" Her voice trembled. "Then I'll stay, but not as your weakness." He exhaled slowly. "I'm stepping down as CEO." Her breath caught. "What?" "Temporarily," he clarified. "Until this settles. Until no one can question why I chose you." She stared at him, stunned. "You'd give up everything?" "I'm not giving it up," he said. "I'm redefining it." The board meeting that followed was brutal. Min Jae was transparent. He took responsibility. He announced his leave. He protected Maya's career with unwavering resolve. By evening, the decision was final. The storm had passed. Weeks later, life looked different, quieter, slower, real. Maya accepted a leadership role in another division. Min Jae returned gradually, his authority intact but reshaped. Yuna left for Paris, her chapter closed with dignity and distance. One night, standing on the balcony of his apartment, Maya watched the city lights flicker below. "Do you ever wish we'd chosen differently?" she asked softly. Min Jae stepped behind her, arms wrapping around her waist. "No," he said. "Easy choices don't change lives." She leaned back into him, finally at peace. They survived the consequences. But as the future stretched before them, one final question remained. Had love truly won? Or was it only the beginning of another test? The quiet that followed was unfamiliar. Not the tense quiet of restraint or the suffocating silence of secrets, but something gentler, earned. Maya hadn't realized how heavy the constant pressure had been until it lifted. Life settled into a new rhythm. She moved into her new role with cautious confidence, proving herself without whispers or shadows trailing her steps. The work was demanding, but it grounded her. For the first time since she arrived in Korea, she felt like she truly belonged, not because of who stood beside her, but because of who she was becoming. Min Jae watched from a distance at first, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. Boundaries mattered now more than ever. Respect had to be visible, earned again piece by piece. When they were together, it was away from boardrooms and eyes that measured every interaction. Quiet dinners, long walks through streets glowing with late-night neon. Conversations that had nothing to do with strategy or damage control. They learned each other without urgency. And in that space, something unexpected happened. They softened. Maya no longer flinched when her phone buzzed. The past stayed where it belonged. Her ex faded into irrelevance, a chapter closed without ceremony. Fear loosened its grip, replaced by something steadier. Min Jae, too, changed. The man who had once ruled through control learned restraint of a different kind, the kind that came from trust. He listened more, let go when necessary, allowed himself to be seen without armor. One evening, months later, they attended a company event together for the first time. Not hidden, not whispered about. Together. Maya wore a deep blue dress, simple and confident. Min Jae stood beside her, hand resting lightly at the small of her back. Not possessive, not guarded, just present. Eyes followed them, but this time there were no murmurs, only respect. Later that night, standing beneath the open sky, Maya turned to him. "Do you ever think about how close we came to losing everything?" "Yes," he said honestly, "and how close I came to losing myself." She reached for his hand. "We didn't choose the easy path." He squeezed her fingers. "We chose the honest one." Time moved forward, careers stabilized, trust rebuilt. The scandal that once threatened to swallow them became a footnote, then a memory. And love, real love, found its place not in secrecy or tension, but in balance. One night, As rain tapped softly against the windows, Maya sat curled on the couch reading. Minjae watched her quietly for a long moment before speaking. "You never asked why I left the apartment that morning," he said suddenly. She looked up surprised. "After the bar?" "Yes." She smiled faintly. "I assumed you were running." "I was," he admitted. "From myself, from wanting more than I was allowed to take. And now? I don't run anymore." The words settled between them, warm and steady. Maya closed her book and leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. "Neither do I." In the end, their story wasn't about a one-night stand. It wasn't about power or scandal or rules broken in the dark. It was about choice. The choice to stay when leaving would have been easier. The choice to tell the truth when silence offered protection. The choice to risk reputation, comfort, and certainty for something real. And that choice changed everything. Sometimes, life places us at the edge of something dangerous, not to destroy us, but to show us who we are when control slips away. Love doesn't always arrive gently. Sometimes it comes as a mistake. Sometimes it comes disguised as temptation. And sometimes it asks us to choose between who we've been and who we're brave enough to become. So here's the question for you. If you were in Maya's place, would you have walked away to protect your future or stayed and fought for the love that terrified you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story held you, moved you, or kept you listening until the end, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because more powerful, emotional stories are coming your way. Thank you for being here.